The obsession with tribalism continues and is really quite well exposed in the comment sections under these videos. And the assumption that uh, you read one particular newspaper, or you look at one particular article, or listen to one particular video, and that this indicates some sort of tribal loyalty. This is absurd, quite absurd. Um, the only thing we can do as observers of these great events that are happening all around us, both domestically and internationally, is to try and make sense of what is happening for the moment. Because tomorrow we may draw different conclusions. I may, you may. And looking through some of the comments, Barry Heaven says, I note that Truss hasn't denied saying this. This is about Truss's decision to stop funding cancer treatment, which is simply shocking. DJ Boggs says, you do realise that this is a claim by one man, right? This again is about the cancer treatment and about Anthony Seldon's new book on Liz Truss. He also claimed that she was a better PM than Johnson, which puts you in a difficult position. Because if you're going to believe this claim, you're going to have to believe that one. Well, no. Anthony Seldon is relying on research that either he's done or one of his minions has done. This may indeed not be a book that he's written entirely himself, like some of his previous tomes on second-rate prime ministers. But nevertheless, it can be judged against that wealth of material that he's accumulated about the prime ministers in living memory, and he's got a much better global view of those prime ministers than many of us have. So I think his views should be taken seriously, the individual views and the general impression. I personally cannot possibly imagine that Liz Truss is a better prime minister than Boris Johnson, and I cannot imagine that somebody as erudite and as thoughtful as Seldon can possibly entertain that thought. So I wait to see the book itself before I make a final judgment. But on the information which has been put out by his publishers to promote the book and to flag up interest, that is certainly the quotation. I suspect within context it's about the fact that Liz Truss has a plan, or had a plan, and that Boris Johnson was completely planless. Now, I'm not sure that having a plan is necessarily the best approach to governing the country. Governing the country is about responding to events, dear boy, as Macmillan said. And whether you have a plan or not, that plan can be derailed by events, as indeed Boris's was. Boris could not have anticipated the COVID pandemic. Vicky King says, Little Britain is grated, not ingrated. I don't have a problem with colour or religion of others. I do have a problem of separate racial enclaves, which just promote cloisters of ethnic groups. This breeds hate and suspicion on all fronts. The frustration is growing. This is not integration as it should be. I agree that the integration is wanting, therefore we need to work harder. And the idea that there are little groups, little enclaves, that is always going to be the case. We need to make people feel welcome, and by carping on the sidelines, I don't think we are making people feel welcome. Maybe we need to get into the American habit of going round to our neighbours and giving them cake. It's Jimbo says, I've loved Starmer's comments on the disturbance, riots in the north, Nazi salutes, racial slurs, property damaged, hotels attacked, police injured, 400 plus arrests, instant trials and jailings within 72 hours. I think that 150 people are now in jail, extreme right-wing thugs living behind every social housing door, listening to this drivel. I thought that the Fifth Reich had risen north of Watford. Compare this with the Notting Hill Carnival: 8 stabbings, 1 or 2 guns recovered, 1 acid attack, 40 police injured, 30 attacks on ambulance workers, numerous gang fights, 300 arrested for dealing and stealing. More importantly, no mass trials and imprisonment for those arrested. And they will all be out on bail by now, and worse, no condemnation of this crime wave from Starmer or Citizen Khan. Makes you wonder if two-tier policing is not an urban myth but government policy, as like the carnival, the demonstrations north of Watford were mostly peaceful. Well, I'm not quite sure what to say about that tirade. I don't believe in this two-tier policing analysis. I do believe the news that apparently there's only 100 spare places in jail at the moment for men, and that is something that Keir Starmer must be aware of and must address. And that may explain a slowdown in terms of processing. But the violence in the Notting Hill Carnival is something to condemn, in much the same way as one should condemn the riots in Southport and elsewhere. I think this myth of two-tier policing is simply a myth, and the more it's repeated, the more people are going to start believing it. I don't believe it, and I think that list, very interesting, is not a demonstration of two-tier policing. To have all that information, suggests the police are being extremely vigilant, extremely active, and crime is being thoroughly recognised and recorded.